24-25 budget. Commissioner Mason, I'm glad to see you. Hope all is well. You'll lead us in the pledge. I'd appreciate it. And Commissioner Slater will say the blessing. If you would, please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, so this budget hearing, it's a little bit different than normal finance committee. We don't actually make any motions and vote on anything. We're just here to chat with elected officials and department heads on their budget requests to get a better idea of what's going to be in the budget coming up here, right here. Going to our agenda, I did put on the agenda resolution in support of the funding for the Hopewell School. That is still being worked on, so we need to roll that. And depending on when the next finance is, it'll probably be on that one. But we can chat about that at the end of this meeting. That takes us to the budget hearing agenda, unless there's any questions on that. No. The first one, the order we go by usually is the person who called in the department, but Lori asked her to kind of switch it around so it's not always first person on there. So, any questions on that? It's just now it's time to chat and ask questions and get answers. And if there's anything that you need outside of this and you need Lori to do it, make sure she's aware that she's got some stuff to do afterwards. Don't assume that she knows. Make sure that she knows. Also, the normal way we've been doing it over the last couple of years is we go through the first round. There's no time limit. Then you get a second chance or a second round. If there's anything after that, just get with the elected official or the department head on your own. All right? Any questions? Seeing none? Welcome, Commissioner Rogers, as well. Going to the first one, IT. Adam, appreciate you being here. It won't take long, just a few questions from my part. My first question, I guess, is Right Core, and now it's called Convergence One. Am I saying that right?
Converge One.
Converge One. We paid them out of multiple lines out of the 52600, the 399, and a couple others. So I'm assuming that they do different things for us.
They do. So a lot of our, if you look at it, line 317, which is data processing services, that line's almost exclusively software and annual renewals. So those are oftentimes billed directly through Converge One, and so any expenses that you see from them there are for purposes like that. And then the other line that you'll probably see expenses from on a regular basis is the 399 line, the other contracted services, and that's simply for our monthly contract fee with them. They are our third party vendor for IT services.
And I assume, just to follow up on that, 709 is if we buy any hardware or equipment from them.
Correct.
Right. So the increase that you're asking for on specifically 399, and the way you just described it, you're 62,000 to 80,000. Can you help us understand that a little bit?
There's actually two costs in that line that make up the total. The largest reason for the increase is what are called block hours. So we have a contract that covers certain support services. Think of it more along the lines of a help desk, right? Call and have a password reset. I'm locked out of my computer. They can remote in and help get you back online. For anything special that's outside of their scope of services, they bill, we buy ahead of time a block of hours, and we use those throughout the year then as projects come up, whether it's an emergency that has to be addressed. If you remember, I think it was not just this last year, but the year before that, when we had power and flooding issues across the street, which is where a lot of the data processing room is downstairs. The power outages caused some damage and affected some of our services, and so that's not something that would be covered in the monthly service and the scope of services. So it came out of the block hours. The Right Corps, who has been our contract, our contractor for several years now, was bought out by this larger company, Converge One, and that took place about a year ago. That merger took place. And what we're already seeing is that there are increases in what now Converge One is charging us as we move forward.
Let me stop you there for a second.
Yep.
So, have you? If you haven't, that's fine because we haven't asked you to do it. But have you got a sense to where it's basically every corporation goes through this, and I live this world where it would benefit us to a certain degree to bring it in house versus because that world is getting more and more expensive. I know. If you haven't done that, we probably need to formally ask you at a later time. But
no, I mean, you're asking the question: at what point does it make sense?
Point.
We're spending all of this money with a third-party contractor. At what point does it make sense for us to bring it in-house and have someone on staff to handle it?
That's correct.
Right?
That's what I'm asking.
Have we officially looked at it? No, but I think here's why. I can certainly do it, but I'll tell you why I haven't yet. That $80,000, of that $80,000, $62,000 is the contract amount. Okay, the block of hours that I was talking that's doubled in price, which is why we have the increase. That block of hours is the difference between 62 and it's $18,000. Okay, is the block hours. So take that out. If you look at just what we're paying for contract services for help desk support, right? It's $62,000. I think we would be hard pressed to find an employee, much less a team of employees, for $62,000 a year.
You would. There's no doubt.
So that's the reason why we haven't seriously looked at it.
But the overall, with the software purchase on that.
The other lines are going to be there.
When is the contract up with them?
I'm sorry?
When is the contract up? I mean, when we have to either rebid it out or re-up it?
We will have, so our month-to-month contract ends at the end of the fiscal year, so June 31. And we've already begun to look at steps to RFP that contract. And so we will have to bid it out. And they will, I'm sure.
So you'll have to bid it out with the constraints of what the budget has. Right.
We will certainly shoot for what the constraints the current budget has, but we really have no way of knowing.
The budget we're
until we
going
get bids
into.
back.
The budget we're getting ready to go into.
Yes.
So, next question, you can dive in as much as you want or as abstract as you want. It's well known, I think, that a couple of organizations here in Southeast Tennessee got hit pretty hard with some security issues that shut them down for a while. I know we've talked about this a couple of times, and we don't want to go into a huge amount of detail, but what are we doing to make sure, and what is our vendor doing to make sure that we are doing everything we can? I'll put it that way. Again, you can speak to it as deep as you want or as abstract as you want.
We are doing what we can within the constraints of the budget. For the last couple of years, we've been hit up pretty hard by a number of insurance brokers about the idea of cybersecurity insurance. It is costly to obtain, but it's even more costly to raise your standards and your infrastructure and your protocols up to the level of even being eligible to be covered by an insurance of that caliber. So, we have endpoint protection. Most everybody that has a county email has seen, sometimes multiple times a week, what are called phishing attempts, where it's just a random or a strange email address or an email, sometimes from what appears to be someone that you know or someone that you work with. Those are relatively harmless phishing attempts. What I mean by that is if you engage those people, and some of you have, you usually end up with the mayor asking you to send him Starbucks gift cards so he can pay for a contract. So it's a scam, is what they are.
Yeah.
it's not an attempt to infiltrate our system and do greater damage. Now, there are attempts that are made, and that sort of thing is protected by the software services that we have in place as well, and that's with the help of our third-party vendor. Yes.
That's good to know. Let me go to our to the list. Commissioner Alford.
That is myself. I don't know what other accounts other than this account, as well as the mayor's budget.
That's a question for me, if that's all right.
Yeah, please, man.
It's done by percentage of time, but the bulk of it is in the mayor's assistant line item. I'd have to look at that one to give you the breakdown. And then there is some that's in the, I call it the OSHA budget, and then a little bit in the IT. That's the three areas that he works from. That make sense?
Yeah, and recently he's been EMS, and is there going to be a stipend out of that account too?
Well, there may be eventually, according to how long it goes. Right now, we're still paying the one that left.
Oh, okay. How much longer you think we're going to be doing that?
I think it was a month, 20 days, something like that, wasn't it? I believe. And on those other two, I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but there's an amount that comes out from those three places. And when she does payroll, she draws it from those three accounts.
Oh, I thought you had a question. Okay. That's the, since Marlon's already covered the other two I had, that's the only question.
And also the benefits are percentage like that too. A little bit of Social Security, a little bit of the life, a little bit of the medical comes from three different places. You go to the OSHA one, you've got, and that's been that way forever, but OSHA has Jeff and Alex from EMA, as well as Adam. It used to be Jeff and Alex and Lindsay, and before that it was Jeff and Alex and Dan Howell. And then, so you've got that one in OSHA divided three ways, and then in the county mayors, I don't have the breakdown, but under assistants, it's in that one line is Adam and Michelle, the secretary, and then in this one there's that percentage also. So that's the three different ones that go together.
So that's the three accounts that he gets paid out of.
Right.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Alford.
Covered
Commissioner Mason, he doesn't have anything. Commissioner Slater doesn't have anything. Chairman Cry. Thank you, Chairman Cry. Mayor Davis.
Nothing.
Commissioner Rogers, you got anything? Adam, I appreciate your time. We went easy on you. I think that was the main thing was the increases and what you're going to do with them. I will ask this real quick. On the software packages, that's usually Microsoft Office. That's probably the bulk of that, right, for everybody?
There are about 12 different renewals that make up that amount. So it's not just Microsoft.
It's not just Office or whatever.
The Exchange licenses are a part of that, yes. We don't have Microsoft Office, but we do have the Exchange licenses.
Thank you.
The number of licenses is in your explanation, but I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, that was another reason for the increase.
Yeah.
So when we talk about Exchange licenses, you're talking about the number.
The Exchange is
of
on the
email
server side.
addresses, right? And for the last 2 years, we've had a need for more. We've been at 400, and we've had a need for more than that. So we've increased the license number to 450, which in turn has a trickle effect with some of those other software renewals that we have, because it's based on the number of licenses that we carry.
And that's for everybody in the county.
Not everyone that works for Bradley County has an email address. The vast majority do. If you figure, 600-ish employees, only 450 have an email address.
But their elected official or department head would determine whether they need
That's
it or
correct.
not. Thank you.
Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Alford.
This doesn't really deal with this. The screens and everything, is that all squared away and we're operational? Miss Lori knows how to operate them now.
I think she feels more comfortable with it today. They were here yesterday, putting some final tweaks on the system, and they were quick to send me the final invoice, which I'll send to Miss Lori here this afternoon. So yes,
So she knows how to operate it,
yes.
hopefully. You got it where you can take a video.
It has an HDMI port, doesn't it? Thank you, Adam. Chief. All right, we'll move on to the fire department. And the order that we have here is Commissioner Alford, Commissioner Mason, Commissioner Slater, Mayor Davis, Chairman Cry, and then myself. So save the best for last, right? Then Commissioner Rogers, please. I had to say it. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate you being here. I know you got a lot of things on your mind, on your plate there. I think this is your first budget hearing, so I appreciate again you being here. We're gonna start, and I'll recognize Commissioner Alford if he has any questions for you.
I don't have any at this point. I'll pitch something like that.
Very good. Commissioner Mason,
I'm gonna pass and look around on some stuff. I kind of been out of
you got it.
sorts. Yeah.
Commissioner Slater,
I have a question.
please.
It's account 121-54310, lines, well, you can turn to that. It's the hybrid, it's under the, where you have the list of your employees under fire.
I'm sorry, what was the line number?
Well, it's gonna be line 5 is the one I have a question about. I'm looking at this sheet.
Oh,
Are you there, Jeff?
I'm almost there.
Okay.
Almost. I think we're there.
And you said hybrid?
You said the hybrid? Slater?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're there.
It's called hybrid retirement accounts, account numbers.
Yeah, we're there.
Okay. I have a question about position number 5, fire maintenance. What position is that?
Okay, that is Ben Kane. He is our part-time. He actually needs to go to a part-time. He only works just 4 hours a day, 5 days a week.
So him being included on that report was an error on my part.
excuse me one second. They can't hear you. The microphone there.
Him being included in hybrid was an error on my part on that report. He's not actually a full-time employee and does not qualify for retirement.
Okay, so he's just part-time, works 4 hours a day, 5 days a week doing repairs?
Yes, small engine repair.
Okay, I just want to make sure this is not the same situation we had a couple of years ago with another department. Okay. So he'll come off this hybrid report. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Slater. Going to Mayor Davis. You have any questions for Chief?
No.
You, Commissioner Chairman Cry. That leaves me. On your revenue, just real quick, there's one that's super easy. In Fund 121, account 48100, contracted services, you estimated 35,000. What contracted services is bringing in 35,000?
Find where you're at.
It's a revenue line.
And our reports are as of March. It could be something that comes in at the end of the year, but as of right now, there's nothing that's come in for the 35,000. So what are we anticipating that for? I mean, who who's gonna send us money for that?
I can answer that
Please.
one for you.
I just want, go ahead.
I send a letter, this is our contract with Charleston,
Oh, yeah.
and I send
Oh,
the
okay.
letters out for these contracts end of April, first part of May, so that's when that'll come in.
All right, so they'll pay 35,000
Mhm.
at the end of the year. Thank
Yeah.
you. I was just wondering, needed to send a 90-day notice to somebody. Kid. Charleston?
Yep.
All right, we'll make note of that. All right, on your expense for line 502, building and content insurance, it's just a quick question, is you budgeted $23,528. As of year to date, you've spent $29,221 according to this document, but your request is back to $23,000. We looked up the account analysis, it's for insurance, property and casualty insurance. Did they go down, or was that a one-time increase? It's a small amount, it's not even worth, but I was just wondering, did you continue budgeting the 29 when you asked for 23?
That's a conversation I would need to have with VFIS. I was not able to talk to them. I had some problems communicating with them this year. The person we normally communicate with was out of the office, had surgery. So I'll make contact with them and verify the amount for next year.
Okay, so it just seems, usually insurances don't go down.
Yeah.
At best, they stay even, but it came in at 29. And you're gonna have to amend that to correct that later on, but I was just curious that. More, Chief, as we get to know you and how you wanna run your department, we chatted about this. I'd just like to know your thoughts, and I put an inquiry into Crystal on the legal piece of it, but you do fire inspections throughout the county for organizations, buildings, and stuff like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we charge anything, or you just send out one of your officers to do the inspection, they record it, and any follow-up on that. What are your thoughts on us approving some kind of fee, just a nominal fee to cover that cost? And
Yeah,
I don't want to put handcuffs on you, but if it is taking somebody out of your department and it is a service that you provide.
We roughly have around, just an average of around 500 businesses that we inspect. We're supposed to inspect those yearly. With one person, it's, so we're probably 90% getting that done throughout the year, but, of course, he's still handling investigations as well when we do those fires. But to answer your question, I really don't have no problems with it, and we have to really look into seeing what codes that we're following. We're in 2018s right now.
So if Crystal comes back to us and says that we can do it, and the commission approves an amount on that, Mayor, that's your department. What are your thoughts on that?
Well,
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
increase the cost of doing business in here, but it is a service that you provide, and you do document that you're in there. Mayor?
and this budget is needing additional revenue as we continue to lose fire tax, for obvious reasons. And say one thing about insurance. Before my proposal, like the line you just mentioned, question her about insurance, it doesn't go down. I will have put this year's amount in that column, or
Okay.
we may have found out a better number from VFIS. Either way, that number will probably be different in my proposal for that
All
reason.
right, so you'll have better info at that. I
Well,
was just wondering when I was going
Most
through.
departments don't even address those lines. They'll leave what was there this year because they know we're gonna update it at that point. And like, for example, I've already changed that line to this year's amount, but hopefully they'll have even a better number between now and then. And on the fee, I'm not one to propose fees, but the fire department revenue is not increasing like the rest of the county is because of losing the fire tax.
Yeah. I was thinking just a nominal fee, 2020.
So that would help. That'd
and
be up
then
to you all.
the number of inspections you do times the fee and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to make sure that I didn't do something and you're like, dog, on that. Last question for me on this one is, you've got a lot of new vehicles. We've gone out there and looked at them with you. shouldn't, in theory, that help us with your maintenance of these vehicles? Your inventories, your old inventory is kind of gone. You've got new and better equipment because you have 200,000 that you budget for maintenance, and it would be good if that can kind of at least stay even or go down. Yeah, I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that.
The maintenance cost, especially with the big fire engines, most of those prices of those trucks have gone up 60% since 2020. The price of the truck alone. The parts, we're having trouble, of course, with the older trucks finding parts for those, even the ones that we just got rid of. But the Pierce fire apparatus that we buy in Wisconsin, just a fuel pump alone for that truck, one of those trucks, any of those trucks, you're looking at $5,000 just for a fuel pump. It's not like a fuel pump you can go down here at AutoZone and get. We only got specific places that we can buy. Four tires is $1,500. Some of those are several $100s a piece, and we can only get those in certain places. So the cost of those is continuously going up.
So the mindset that you've got new vehicles and that you probably don't have to, they're not going to break down as much, but yet they're obviously more expensive, and the cost of taking it to whatever when you do is going up. So there's no expectation, or we probably need to trim back the expectation that your maintenance is going to go down. Last thing I ask you is your org chart. How are you with your firemen? I mean, every position is filled, or you just had a rookie camp, I believe. How are you doing on employment and retention and recruiting?
One short right now is all we are. Other than that, we're fully staffed. Other than no one short.
You got one short, and you
We
can fill that in, I guess, the next one or whatever.
We take in volunteers. We're averaging probably 10 every quarterly. Quarter on the volunteer side of things. So we're trying to boost the volunteer side of things, but on the paid side, yeah, it's we're just one short.
So Mary, if you're almost fully employed with this, I mean, this is almost the max of what your cost would be on wages and salaries, right? I mean, you're not gonna have. In other words, if you told me that you had like 5 or 6 vacancies over the last 3 months, you would have some savings for people that you didn't have to pay bi-weekly and stuff like that. But since you're fully employed, this number that you have as far as is pretty current. I mean,
And
you're not going to have any savings.
They've been full for a while. When was the last rookie school?
It ended in September.
Let's see, they've been full since the last rookie
year.
school.
So this is.
Much. I want to add something on the maintenance, if I could, Mylan. And
Please.
same thing with Sheriff's Department. Anybody that has, because we're buying a lot of sheriff's cars too, the lines don't tend to be going down, but they're not going up like they were. Does that make sense? So yeah, we're saving on fixing the vehicles, but because of the increased cost on the tires and oil and so forth, it's still staying steady. We're not saving, but we're saving from what it would have been. Is a way of looking at that, and that's pretty much
that
what
makes
sheriff
sense. I
and them
mean,
too.
if you have to send one of your vehicles down to the vendor down in Chattanooga, I'm sure that vendor is charging you more now than they were.
Hourly
But
rate is $240, $250 an hour.
yeah, so they get to work on newer vehicles. That's all I have. Mary, anything? Commissioner Rogers, you got anything? Very good. All right, we'll come back.
I have
to
a
the top of-
question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Two things.
You want to stay with the order?
You had a question, Sidney?
Go ahead if he's gonna let you go
I
first.
was just, the mayor mentioned twice.
I'm going by the list.
How come the fire tax is going down? Is it because all the cities taking in
We're
county
losing
property?
dirt outside the city. The fire tax only apply. Yeah. You're right.
Because all the city taking up.
It
That's
does take
something we need
revenue
to-
around.
That's something we need to consider, I think, when we look at letting one come back into let them out of the county, we'll put it that.
And it doesn't save on expenses because they still got to go to Love's, for example, for a fire, even though across the road is now being referendum annexed. But we lost the fire tax at the one across the road. So I often say annexation doesn't affect Bradley County's revenues except with fire tax. And it does there.
Is it affecting it quite a bit, number-wise?
Yeah, it's not growing like the rest of the revenues are for that reason. That's why I'm encouraging them to sell as much as they can, and it goes into the fund balance, which helps with their next budget. And they've done a lot of that this year. Hopefully they can do some more. Because the revenue, and I haven't looked at the most recent report, but it's not growing is what I'm saying. So we got to be careful with the fire budget. And they know that.
Commissioner Alford, and then we go to Commissioner Mason. You're good, and then we go to Commissioner Slater.
And we'll save the best for last.
There you go. But we're not.
Back to your hybrid account, I should have asked this earlier. Your fire marshal position, that position's open?
Full-time, I'm wanting to get that position, is what I'm wanting.
So it's in your budget for this year to fill that? Would that be someone within, or would that be someone already within your organization?
Good. Back to Mayor Davis.
I don't know what to say about that. If and when we do that, it's, right now you have a commander doing it on the side. You follow me? So when that commander moves to full-time then that gives you a commander vacancy. Somebody moves up. So at the end of the day, you have that position, and then you have 2 vacancies. Does that make sense? So that's the hesitation so far, even though we need to do it, and we'll probably be doing it in the very near future. Probably around July the 1st budget time, but that's the end result of what happens. We promote from within, true, but it does create a second vacancy down the road. So.
All right, next is Chairman Cry. Thank you, Chairman Cry. And back to me. On your org and your people, you mentioned earlier that you want to do some changing of ranks and stuff like that. Can you touch on that real quick?
Yes, right now we currently are housing firemen in McDonald, Taylor areas, and as well as Harrison Pike. I would like to put some sort of supervisor role at that McDonald and McDonald and Taylor area. Right now, that is just 2 firefighters. There's no difference in their roles that they do at those 2 stations to any other station. They do reportings. They go on just as many calls as the other stations, and just trying to have a typical supervisor role at those locations. They're really far out, so we're just trying to get some kind of organizational setup for those stations. So trying to get it cleaned up.
Basically, you have some officers and firefighters at each station is what you're after. That sounds like, right?
Right now, if there's disciplinary actions needs to be done, they have to come back into some of the other stations and speak to a lieutenant or at one of those other stations at Manus or Dalton Pike. And there's a lot more roles and responsibilities that we're putting on. So.
Last question, then one comment. You received a few grants, and you don't even have a grant writer, right? Or do you? No, right? But you'd mentioned that some grants that you were going to go after. What are they?
I'm not made it out there yet, but I spoke to Mayor about it. We did receive a grant from the State Fire Marshal's Office 2 weeks ago. So it's another $26,000 that we're going towards PPE and Swiftwater gear. So that's not went through the process yet, but we did receive that. That's our second grant in 2 years. The other ones are FEMA grants that we're after, Norfolk Southern, and some hazmat grants that myself and another commander that's been doing the grants, grant writing.
So I appreciate you going after those grants. That obviously helps your budget and everybody as well. Last thing I just want to say, I appreciate the invite to your banquet. We had a really good time there, and got to see some of your guys there and the recognitions that they deserve. I thought it was a really good time, and I hope that's something you continue to do. Yes. That's all I have. Commissioner Alford, please.
Taylor Station and the 2 that you said way out, Has that become a feasible thing, or is it something that you could do closer in, or are those pretty well concrete where you won't put those outside stations? Are they getting a lot of use? I guess is what I'm coming to.
Yeah, yeah, they are. Hopefully, I can answer your question. Are you saying just is it worth putting those out there?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Our Taylor station is a really busy. It's probably mid-level call volume. We have to do inspections, help with pre-plans, hydrant inspections. When we do reports and things that have to be done, when they get on the medical calls, all those are by themselves. They don't have other trucks coming with them or a supervisor to come with them. So just having that, if there's disciplinary action needs to happen, if someone's late and those things.
Is it always standard operating procedure that
Medical calls, out of the 3,600 calls we run a year, it's about 2,000. So that's the majority of our call volume is medical calls. What we do, we only run specific things, chest pain, strokes, not everything. It's just really life-threatening things, yeah.
correct? Class 5 fire truck.
Yes, chest pains, heart attacks, CPRs, those are the things. And we get out there and we're able to put medical attention if there's not an ambulance, because ambulances are coming pretty far away from, they're coming from inside of town, or if they've got a delay at the hospital, then we're there giving oxygen, those kind of things. So it helps out.
Thank you.
Might
Chief?
add to that, Waterville, that's probably most of their calls, isn't it,
Yeah, Waterville Station is the busiest one.
for medical?
They run over 1,000 a year by themselves. I mean, they're pretty busy. Now that's first due, second due, those things.
Do a lot with that. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. Any other questions for him? Oh, Commissioner Mason, I'm sorry.
I'll just say to the chief, also, you can come to my house anytime. I think EMS and Fire and Rescue probably saved my brother's life on Monday by responding out to Spring Place, and I'm indebted to you guys for that. He's still in ICU. He's alert more now, but he's still in ICU. Got a long road to cover, but y'all are the reason he's here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mason. We hope he does well. Every once in a while we have someone come to the commission and tell us that they don't think that they should have to pay the fire tax because they don't have a fire hydrant close to them or something like that. And I always like to take that opportunity to remind them that it's the fire and rescue department. You guys don't just go put out fires. You also go to traffic accidents and I-75 responsibilities and pull people out of vehicles and stuff like that. So it's more than just fire. It's fire and rescue. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Anything else? No?
And add to it, you can go ahead and be going. I hear a lot, well, I don't have a structure on my property. I got 100 acres and no house or anything on it. But they can tell you they go to grass and woods fires more than they go to house fires. And those are costly as far as tying up equipment and personnel. They don't realize that. They think it's just for houses, but it's true fire protection of all kinds. And, the big fire they had here a month ago was from somebody burning garbage outside. It caused a tremendous amount of equipment and personnel to go to that scene to fight that fire, and there wasn't a structure probably on that property. You know what I'm saying? So people don't always realize that, but that's the other complaint is I don't have a house on my property. I got that person could have said, I got 100 acres out there with no house on it. Why do you charge me a fire tax? And there's an example of why. They paid
while your
less.
vehicles were out there attending to that, other vehicles, were not able to be used or whatever, or they won't be able to use. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ron. It's been a long time since we've seen you. I'm just kidding. Now, we just got a few questions for you. Commissioner Alford is gonna start us off. Commissioner Alford, you are recognized.
Yes,
Okay, sorry.
several requests. I had, questions about, you're asking a lot of increases, 5%, for example, assistant, and 14.8 for planning and all this. Can you explain the reasoning for all these additional increases in salaries? You're taking it away from other areas in your budget and increasing your salary.
Well, we're down one person that's included in the budget that's not shown, that I'm pulling from that to increase the others.
What
So
person are you down in?
My department, me. Whenever Bentley left, I pulled into Bentley's position, and my position is vacant.
So you're actually down
One
the
person.
position that Bentley had,
Yes.
which was a full-time planner?
I took the planner's position, so I'm taking that position. So my position as building official is officially vacant, even though I'm serving that role. Does that make sense? In other words, I'm doing 3 jobs.
Is that a lot? Are you overworked?
Yes.
Point I'm getting to, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot to do it, yeah.
Are you missing a lot of stuff because you don't have enough manpower?
Well, I've got a request in for a full-time girl that's in the office now part-time, and she is able to fill a lot of that void of taking over some of the responsibilities that I had to look for that she's doing. And so it's relieving me of some of the stress of that area.
That's all I've got right now.
Thank you,
I'll come
Commissioner
back.
Alford. Commissioner
back.
Mason.
I try to help Ron out all I can too on my side of things too, because I know we're never have to worry about
stressed.
being busy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's always every day.
And the amount of building going on right now in the last 7 years that I've been here is astronomical.
Yep.
I don't know that it's ever been
Yep.
compared to today.
So we know Ron's busy.
Commissioner Slater.
Thank you, sir. I have a question about one of your requests for Fund 101, Department Account Number 51720, line item 471. It's new software that you're looking to purchase?
Yes,
So when your department looks to purchase new software, do you work with the IT department to verify this software, or do you do anything related to the IT department?
no. We have no IT department to my knowledge.
Oh, we don't? Well, they've got a budget request that they just turned in to us.
Yeah, they don't work for us. I never can find them.
Oh, okay.
But,
We'll pass that message along to them for
yeah,
you.
yeah, it's all done remotely now, so nobody comes into the office. If I got a question, I just have to turn it over to Adam, and he sends it to them, and they call us, and hopefully we can fix what the problem is.
Okay. So I'll wait my turn for my next one.
Oh, go ahead.
No. So back to kind of what Commissioner Alford was saying.
Yes.
If you all are that short, is just increasing a part-time person going to be enough of a personnel increase for you to manage the workload that you're describing for your department?
Yes, as long as I stay after it. The trouble of it is, if anything happens to me, it will be a pinch.
Because in the past, we've seen where various departments have chosen not to fill positions, and they have taken that salary and divided it up between those that are left. And the mid-year through the next year, they come back and say, we got to have a person, yet they didn't budget for that person.
Right.
So do you anticipate that that would happen in the 24-25 budget?
I don't anticipate it happening, but I don't know, my health-wise, and if I go down, then we will be in dire need, and I have not talked to the mayor about anybody coming in to fill the planner's position or such as that. But it would be something that I'd like to look at in time to come. When I took this position and talked to the mayor about it, it was going to be combining the two positions, and it would not be much load change. But it has been a lot of change due to the amount of that's going on in the planning department, not counting the building department, that I still get 4 or 5 calls a day that takes me away from the planning department. If that answered your question.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
All right, and go back over here. Who is next? Mayor Davis.
Good, I'm next. If you look at this year's budget, when we did what we did not eliminate the position, we didn't eliminate the budget. My proposal will be not be eliminating the position. We're saving the money until we fill it, so it's a savings, but I don't want to lose it because we've needed 2 building inspectors, and in the very near future, we will again. Now, for temporary, we moved a building official to planner. He still has a responsibility of commercial inspections and things like that the other guy can't do. Eventually, the other guy hopefully will be able to do those, and then we'll look at hiring a second building official, sort of like the other guy was when we hired him. So my proposal will have that salary back there. And the justification for some of the increases using that salary will have gone away. So those changes will be made because I think keeping that position is most important. And that doesn't take away from the fact that his part-time needs to go full-time. That's in a different budget.
Right.
So that's probably going to be there, but I will be proposing the vacant position stay
Okay.
in budget only for the time being, which means it is a savings, but we can't lose the position because we're not needing fewer inspectors, and the building industry is not going in that
Correct.
direction. So your concerns, I hadn't talked to you, but they'll be addressed in my proposal.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's all.
That's it? All right. Next is Chairman Cry. Fine. And it comes to me. So, it's more of a kind of an interesting question is there, and it kind of speaks to what he was just talking about in Commissioner Slater, the building permit, you're increasing your budget projection, your revenue, quite a bit. And one can only assume that that revenue projection is because of all the construction going on,
Exactly.
people, developers. And correct me if I'm wrong, the way it works is a developer or builder, whatever title you give them, basically tells you or your department, I'm going to build a house that's worth $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000.
Correct.
And then that is what they have to pay as far as their permit, right?
Correct.
So something times something equals the permit rate, right?
Correct.
Do you set the rate?
It
I
is
know
set-
they tell you what the estimated cost of the appraisal or the value of the house or building is
Yes.
going to be, but you have a rate or something you have to.
Yes, since y'all voted on to what the rate fee is. It's a staggered fee that goes up with the cost of the house.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's say, I think a $500,000 house, the permit fee is like $1,000, give or take a few cents. I don't know
And-
exactly. And so when the price of the houses go up or the construction costs go up, our fees go up.
So the more expensive house, so it's tiered.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
tiered level, yes.
Okay, so you're basically in the current budget you're right now, you basically estimated $150,000 in building permits, and you're going up to basically about 225.
Yeah.
So about a
According to what-
75,000. So one, you said, and I get your ballparking. A $500,000 house brings in about $1,000 permit.
Yes,
So
approximately.
impressed me, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pivot here for a second. Mayor, those rates, how long have they been in place, those rates? And
Not that long. They tiered them, I don't know, time flies, but it's just been a few years ago. It used to be based on the cost of the building, but nobody would ever turn in the correct cost. So anyway, you all went to a tiered system, but I don't have your answer, but it's not been that long. I think because of the fact that it's tiered, there may be more in the upper tier now as they get costing more.
that's what I was
You
kind
see
of
what I'm
thinking, is
saying?
that the
But yeah.
tiers should
I don't think it
adjust.
needs to be adjusted because I think it's set up now where that it takes care of the more expensive houses.
Yes.
Well-
It was voted on by by the commission.
I don't.
At some
we
point, but
adopted the 2018. I don't
18, you think?
Been a
Is
long
that-
time.
That
are
sounds-
those
Long
rates-
time
are
ago.
those-
It's been
Yeah.
a couple of years.
Been a couple of years, I guess.
Yeah, but it's not based on the cost now. It's based on the cost. But again, if a house used to cost 100,000 and now it costs 200,000, and that's probably about right, it's in that tier of 200,000 now. So more houses are going to be in the second and third and fourth tier.
That's also how.
So that's why the date doesn't matter that much. I think it's addressed. They just may be more in the upper tiers.
Lori, when you get a second in the next week or two, if you can get that tier system and those rates and when they were last approved, that'd be great info.
It's been within the last 2 years.
I don't remember ever voting on it,
Yeah,
but,
it was when we adopted the 2018 codes,
Yeah.
which has been the last 2 years, I think, hasn't it? Or you-
well, that answers that question. I'd appreciate it. That was a, the 150,000 to 225,000 budget, revenue projection.
When we did.
And that
let
speaks
me-
to what the mayor was saying, that's why he's gotta keep that position, because that's either more housing, more expensive housing, or more either more volume or the cost of housing. Next question I have, and it's kinda still on the revenue side, your stormwater. Who pays for stormwater? I mean, we're talking $4,000 here, but who has to pay for stormwater?
What it is, for those that may not know, the state requires us to be in the stormwater program.
Yes.
And the state assigns us areas, what is called a MS4 area. Those are spotted all over the community, all over the county. Like the city of Cleveland now is all in that area, but we just have certain spots where the subdivisions are and such as that we have to enforce. And so if someone's in that area, say in Greystone out here on Bates Pike, that is in the stormwater area. So if someone builds in that subdivision, they have to get a stormwater permit, where we watch their water runoff and do all these inspections for that property. And so the fee is like $50.
So is it a one-time fee, or do they have to go out
One
there and inspect, annually or something like that to make sure that
Well,
nothing happened since the last time they inspected?
once the fee is paid, it goes through the life of that project. When the project is complete, then that fee and permit is closed, and no other inspections are done on it. Now, if they come back and they build on to another structure or build another structure on that property, then another fee is required.
Yeah, it's only $4,000, so I guess there's not much of that going
Well,
on.
$50 is a whack. You know, it takes a long time.
And the
to build a
state
lot of money.
tells us how much we can charge on that?
State is not mandating that fee. That was just the fee that was included when it was started.
So is that a
So
fee?
the commission
You can
could
tell I'm in the
increase-
fee business today.
So the
is that a fee
commission
that-
could increase the fee, yes.
Okay. Next, on your stormwater, staying with stormwater, just, the increase, your assistant in line, it's account 57, let me get that right. 57800, line 103, assistants. Your budget in the current budget, the budget we're in right now, $41,665, and your request is $77,371. And when I was looking over, you're decreasing over on your planning and increasing over on stormwater.
Correct. We're
But yet
putting
you want
the-
to stay, you want to keep employees in planning.
Well,
So I guess my question, just so you know, is why or how, what's going on with this increase?
right. What that is we're moving the part-time person. We're doing away with that line item, and we're increasing the two.
But we don't need more stormwater people.
No.
So why are
not
we
stormwater.
increasing the line?
Yeah, we're increasing that for the part-time person that we have that we're moving to full-time, who will be in the stormwater to budget. And she will be more or less assigned to stormwater, but she is also our administrative support person for our office.
So why don't you just keep it in planning? I
Because
guess what I
that's-
don't understand is why move it from one account to
Well,
another.
we're not.
You're increasing it.
She was in the part-time budget out of stormwater. That's where she was at to begin with.
Yeah, what he did, Mylan, the
He's
part-time
increasing.
person was in stormwater. We could do what you're saying, but why he did it the way he did it. The part-time person was stormwater, and he's proposing to make her full-time in stormwater. They could zero her out of stormwater and move her to planning, but that would be a move. He's left it where it was. Just see, if you look at the two lines, the second line becomes a zero,
That's
and the top line is that second line becoming
and
full-time.
that's what caught my eye originally, was like, oh, he's just eliminate that and moving everything one line up, but that's more than what that line zeroes out at.
The first line is a position plus the second line being
Yeah.
made full-time.
Now I get it, but
Yeah, there's two people be on the first line.
All right.
Yeah.
Under assistance, there'll be two in there.
And in
But I
reality,
still-
it's
I
all
still-
one department with two
well,
budgets.
it's a management decision that you
Yeah.
want to do. I get that, but I'm still scratching my head why, with everything was just said about planning, and you're planning now, and not so much permitting, but even though you are permitting,
Right.
I mean, you would think that you would keep the money in planning and permitting.
Well, the
But
department's planning and inspections, and I was trying to think from memory. I
not
think back when
stormwater.
we were forced to create stormwater, we had to budget it. It really all should be combined into one, planning and inspections. Inspections covers everything, but we've left that two budgets there, and I think from memory it's because at the time we were required to create a stormwater. Could be wrong, that's been a few
So-
years ago, but I think that's what put it there to start with.
Well, you can keep it the same or change it in your proposal. I mean, but I was just curious as what you were.
But in reality,
decreasing here
physically,
and increasing here on two different accounts.
yeah, in reality, it's one department. It's supposed to be called planning and inspections.
So we can-
Stormwater is one of the inspections.
Are we required to have that account for stormwater?
At the time, I think we were. I don't know if anybody would care if it was done away with and combined. They probably wouldn't.
It'd be the one time I'm for consolidation. Yeah.
It would be easier to pay the bills.
Well, it'd be easy to understand is when someone says, "Oh, they just decreased the planning budget," and we got permits and all that kind of stuff going up. And anyway, that's all I got. Thank you.
When we
But-
first created it, the state gave me heck. But first of all, I didn't create it for a year or two. I was totally against the rain tax that the federal government was putting down on us. And finally, we were forced to do it. And I remember them saying, "You're not budgeting enough for stormwater." And I said, "Well, I'm going to budget the very least I can, and I'm going to do the very least I can, because I know the intentions of stormwater, and they're good, but they were used to seeing big budgets for this. And in reality, when you get down to it, now, the former department head basically did stormwater countywide. The law only requires us to do an area, the MS4 he was referring to. So we stopped the countywide. I said, we're only going to do what we're forced to do, and the state will do the rest of it like they're supposed to do. They loved it when we did it all because we were doing their job for them. But we only do a small thing now. So that's kept our budget from growing. But back to your thing, in this case, it looks like one's going up, one's going down. If they were combined, I don't know if it would open a can of worms if I combined them or not, but that's why there's two originally, I'm pretty sure.
Thank you. We're back to the top. Commissioner Alford.
Yes, two things. The request for $3,500 for furniture and request for $8,500 for wide scanner.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on those a little bit?
The wide
'Cause I know
format,
we just refurbished that place a couple of years,
well,
two or
we
three years.
didn't get finished. We run out of money per se because we didn't finish up the front. If you've not been in a while, we've closed the front completely off, and you cannot get to the back offices without coming through a locked door on one side or the other. But the area was not finished with desk work, and that figure I just estimated what it would cost to build the front desk around the front up there for the entrance for Teresa. And so that's what that's for. All right. The scanner, we have one that's in GIS services. It is sometimes inaccessible to us, and we need to run stuff. The mayor's needing the copies of something now, and the GIS team are out of town. We can't use it. But I did find out earlier today that Stanley has a key for that department, so we've got to scan this stuff so I can get it to the mayor because he needs to scan us some stuff for the fire hall. So that's the reason for that figure for the scanner. Now, that's the price that I've got from Cleveland Business Machines, but I found one earlier, same machine on Amazon for $3,500. So that's where that would be if I could get that much. But we just need it in our department because we have to scan plats that come in. We have to scan them into the system, be digitally kept, also to make them available to print off if we need to in smaller formats. But the widescreen platter or scanner is an expensive piece of equipment, but we don't need a printer, just a scanner.
So you're gonna adjust your budget, or mayor gonna adjust your budget back from 85 to 35?
Probably adjust it all out, but you know.
Yeah, well, that's gonna be my next,
I'm gonna be honest about
next
it, you know.
concern, you might say.
Can I jump in and ask him a question, because I hadn't had time to do this? Being new, you probably don't know, but I always tell departments, prioritize your requests. So take this for example, 8,000 software, 3,500 furniture, the 8,500 office equipment. How do they rank? What's number one?
Number one will be the software.
Okay, I guessed it right.
Yeah.
And that's important because we're not going to fund all three very rarely. Which one's most important?
Correct.
And that's how I'm looking at it, Louie. Plus, his justification was eliminating that position, which I'm putting back somewhat. So he lost the justification for all three, so the prioritization is real important. I think the software would benefit the department more than anything. We can come back next year and do the other things, that kind of attitude, but anyway. It's good to know the ranking. Thank you.
Let me say this on the software. The reason for the software, we have a permitting software now that we are using for the building and stormwater, which is working. It's not the greatest, but what has happened, I think I put it in the the proposal, is stormwater has lost the company that it was providing their software. They didn't go belly up. They just quit handling that, what they call MS4 web software. So now we are scratching to find another software that the stormwater department can use. And in the process, what we found is one that will work with planning, inspections, permitting, and stormwater to do her reports as well as to better our permitting software. And so that's the reason for that. And I have split that into stormwater's portion and building's portion, or planning's portion. If you notice on the, basically the same money, it's $13,000 a year. But it's split between the two departments due to the use of both departments.
Have you ever looked at rates for or permits from other counties in the areas, what we charge compared to some of these other counties?
Yes, sir.
We
are probably 40 to 60% lower than in the city of Cleveland, I know.
I get ready to ask you, that was my next question.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we figure $1,000 permit, they're figuring
$2,000.
$3,000 permit.
Yeah, 2,000 to 3,000. Yeah. Just to be honest, you know.
We're gonna look at it.
Okay, taking notes.
Commissioner Mason. I'm sorry. Commissioner Slater. Thank you, Mr. Slater. Mayor Davis, back to you. He's shaking his head no. Chairman Cry. Commissioner Rogers. Thank you.
I do have a question about the permitting. Is that based off, and this is just my ignorance, not knowing, is it based off the cost of the house, or is it based off the square footage?
It's based off of the cost of the house.
Okay.
Presumed cost of the house, not the property, just the cost of what the construction will be.
And the materials and everything else.
Yes.
And so with the rise of materials going through the roof over the past handful of years, there's obviously been an increase.
But not everybody will reflect the true price.
Absolutely.
You know,
And
I know I've seen a lot of $300,000 houses that had $200,000 on the permit.
sure. I'm sure you've seen a lot of $500,000 houses that have had 200,000 on the front.
Exactly.
So, do other counties do it the same way? Is that kind of standard practice, or do some people go off of the square footage of the house? If it's 1,000 square feet to 1,500 to 2,000 type deal?
Yes.
Is that
It's our software will do it that way, but what you get into is somebody comes in, use 1,000 square foot house for example, and we say right now what the last I heard was it's costing somewhere around $150 a square foot.
up
build
to
a house.
200? Yeah.
Up to 200,
Yeah.
over 200
Or-
when it was at the highest. And so we say that you got 1,000 square foot house, it's gonna cost you 180,000. Okay, if the software figured it that way.
Sure.
But they come in, they say, no, I'm gonna build my house out for 100,000. I got free labor and,
Absolutely.
materials only. So we get into that situation of, well, this says you're gonna cost you this much, and the people say, no, it's gonna cost me this much.
Sure.
And so to eliminate that, we tried to find a happy medium.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's a tiered, y'all have to excuse me, I run out of air when I'm talking. No, it's not water, it's my lungs after COVID. Back up, there's so much fee for up to $1,000. Up to 15,000, there's another fee that goes on the fee. That's how it's staggered all the way up.
Mr. Rogers, I've asked Lori to get that tier system and
it
those
would be
rates.
great to be able
Yeah.
to have the formula and like the entire information behind that, not just the tiers, but how it's how it's written in and the formula that
Yeah.
makes that number as well. Because I would venture to say that if I was building a house, somebody who is in my line of work, if I was building a $500,000 house, I probably could build it for half of that, right? So I probably would write half of that or less on it, right? I mean, that's not the right thing to do,
Right.
but if I was building a 3,000 square foot house, I mean, you can't change plans, right? I mean, if you're building a 3,000 square foot house, that's the size house you're building, and then those fees would be based on square footage instead of cost of materials.
Correct.
Okay.
Great. And let me say this about fees too. This was the first change in fees when we done this last one, when we adopted the 2018 codes since 1999. And they were not raised. I just reevaluated them. And it was that the cutoff was $1 million. And after it hit $1 million, it was like $2 per thousand, over $1 million, which I get the exact number now. But once it hit $1 million, there was no delimiter to cut it down again. That's hard to explain for me. But now in the fee, once it hits like 1 million, the next million is at a lower rate to cut that fee down, because previously, if you had a $2 million house or building or whatever, because it's all the same rate, the fee was probably $300 higher than what it needed to be, because the base figures stopped at $1 million cutoff. Does that make sense to all of you?
Yeah, that's how income tax works. But we're gonna take a look at it and
But
see what.
Lori's got it. If she ain't, I can get it to her in just a few minutes.
So
send it to her.
we'll take a look at it, and if there's any changes, I'm sure they need to be put in place by the time that the budget starts July 1, if there's any changes made. But we're gonna take a look at it.
Okay.
But back to that part where you were talking about how you go about that. That someone who says that they fill out the forms and they, they say it's $200,000 house. Everybody in the free world knows it's $500,000. How do you eventually reconcile that? Because eventually Stanley's going to appraise it, and then somebody's
It's
going to
one
buy
of
it for more.
those-
Or do you just say it is what it is?
It is what it is.
So there's no going back and saying
Like I say, the software.
it really is depending on a lot of honesty.
Yeah, but
I mean, I was just wondering if there's
contest that you're not going to win. Let's put it that way.
so you can't say to a developer or a builder, you put on the form at the beginning of this process so you can get your permit 200,000. Everybody knows it's 500,000. And there's nothing you can do about it. All right,
No, not the way it's set up,
all right, that's
you know.
everybody. You want a third round? Yeah.
Right. Not at this point, because it really comes from the mayor's office to do this. And so it would be up to Mayor Davis to instruct me to put it in my budget to do that.
So,
And I don't know. If I was left that impression, no, I was never instructed by anybody to say, look at prices, because I don't know who to contact, because this would come from the mayor to me, and Laura, this is your email this morning. It would come from the mayor to me, then the planning commission, to start this process. And so without the mayor or either the council commissioners saying we need to figure out what the fee's gonna be, because I don't know how to figure that without contacting some outside group to do it. But it's gonna be expensive. I would say Mayor Davis remembers the first one, I don't. So and y'all may remember it too, but I would say you're looking at $150,000.
Yeah, it was an outside firm. We did it jointly with the city, and I don't remember the cost, but it was quite a bit. Now, would it be that much to update it since it's in existence? Possibly not. We are looking at trying to get that, but ideally it should be updated jointly again. It shouldn't, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know if they're moving on doing anything yet or not, but it does have to, needs to be done by an outside company that will come in and work with a committee or whatever to update what's in place. It's not just the growth plan, it's the whole strategic plan. The growth plan is just a part of that. And everybody's talking about how outdated it is, but drive down the road to Hamilton County, they don't have a strategic plan. They've never had one. So I kind of get defensive about saying ours is outdated when we got one. They don't even have one. But I can argue against updating it. But if we do it right, we do hire an outside firm, and it is done jointly with the city. So when we can get some agreements in place there and come back to you, it'll be a funding issue, and we'll ask you if you want to go move forward with funding it at that point. I am moving forward with the growth plan committee. That will come to you in the next few weeks, but that one there is a little more complicated because it needs to be done by outside.
Well, since you made mention Hamilton County doesn't even have one, and do we actually need to have one? Why don't we do away with it?
Well, like I've said a million times, it is a tool that, let's go back 5 years ago, Bentley would use that tool as a guide on what should happen, but it wasn't never supposed to have been used as you can do this or you can't do this. That's why you all have never adopted it. It was a tool that planning used that is a few years old now, but it was still just a tool. It's still got that same wire pliers in the toolbox. They're just not brand new wire pliers, but I wouldn't say throw the wire pliers away. You may still need them one day. It's no different. But I'm not arguing against updating it. I'm just saying it's not going to be free, and it should not be a crutch on what we do or not do. That outlet could still be fixed even though you got old pliers in the toolbox.
That's the point I guess I was getting to, Mayor. It's being used now
I know.
as a crutch. And that's where I have a problem with the planning commission right now, because they're using that strictly as a crutch instead of using the whole concept of why you're.
I agree with you totally on this subject, and I don't know why they are, because
All
you
right.
go back 5
I
years
think
ago,
we can
you
all
didn't
agree
hear
we're
about
getting
it.
off on a totally different topic that I'm sure we're going to talk about one day soon.
But the bottom line is, in the near future, after I get the growth one discussed, we will come back and say, hey, city and county's going to go together, it'll cost the county this much, and
We got it.
you'll have an updated option before you, but that
Got
won't be real soon.
Got it. Thank you, Ron. you're dismissed. All right.
What's that, Josh?
Mayor, did you say it won't or will be soon?
EMA,
Will
Troy.
not. We'll get the growth boundary out of the way first, and
It would be nice to see a proposal.
Thank you, Troy.
talk to them.
Let's see our order. Oh, Commissioner Slater is going to go first, and Mayor Daviston, Chairman Cry, myself, and Louie, then Mason. So, Commissioner Slater, you are recognized.
Let me find my place.
Take your time.
How are you, Troy? Good to see you as always. I have a question about the I think it's $116,000. I actually have two questions, but the new Emergency Operations Center, $116,000.
You talking about that last line in his budget request?
Yep.
Can I jump in out of order and say something here to Gitchen's?
Of course you can.
Thank you, because I'm second anyway, so can I jump ahead of you?
But you may not.
First of all, in my proposal, that 116 will come out, and then we'll ask you to amend it back in the new budget. That 116 is what you put there for him to use as seed money to move forward with the project that he was hoping to get an EMA or a FEMA grant with. I don't want to mix this budget with that project too much because he'll explain it separately. But that 116 will come out, and then you'll be asked to put it back in July so that we can move forward with the project, but a different project.
Okay.
In this budget, just talking about budget, knowing that 116's coming out, his real thing to discuss is he's asking for a second position, and you need to make him justify and convince you that he needs and you can afford that position. And then we will talk about the new project moving forward, if that's okay. And that position, see, the other stuff's not in the budget, but we'll talk about it too here in a minute. I know Mylan's wanting to talk about the other stuff, but there's nothing in
Yeah.
this budget except for that
That's
116.
why I brought him in.
Do you want me to ask all my questions, or you want me to just ask one and then
All of them.
So let's talk about the position that you have that you're requesting.
Adam?
So
shut
could
down
you
for
repeat,
failure?
could you repeat all that you started from the beginning?
Okay.
No, not really.
But anyways, it's one of those things that becomes more and more and more work. We want to be able to justify, we want to get other grants that we're not currently writing right now, and hopefully, we're not asking for a lot of money. We're asking for $41,000, and for somebody that's that technical, that's not a lot of salary.
So is it truly a full-time position, or is it a part-time
No, it'd
position?
be a full-time position.
But is it truly a full-time position? I mean, there's enough work for it to be a
Yes.
full-time position?
I mean, like, we could get a call today from an industry and they want us to come out and go through their plant, help them write an emergency plan and things of that nature. So,
And do they pay you for that?
No, they don't. I don't know that.
Should they?
Have no clue. We've never charged.
I
for
don't know
something
on
like
that.
Yes, they should.
I don't know.
I don't know that any other county charges for services like that. I think that as far as on the emergency management side, tied in with the local emergency planning committee and all that stuff is just rolled into, we want to make sure that they have the best plan possible, so hopefully they don't have the big emergencies. So
How many of those do you think you do a year?
I couldn't tell you. We review a bunch of plans and tell them whether we think that it'll work based on the people that they have in place and the people they've got named and
Is it
things like
10?
that.
Is it 50? Is it
No,
100?
it's probably more like, 15. We'll sit and read the plan a couple times and make sure we're all familiar with it. And then from that, we'll go out and we'll help them evaluate their plan and see if it works for them. And in the case of like Bach or something big like that, we went out there just constantly working with them to have a plan. And it's huge on some of them. Some of them have a corporate plan, and that corporate plan may be 400 pages, and they might need a 25-page plan so that everybody can remember and understand what they're supposed to do.
Okay, thank you. That's it for now.
And I was just wanting to get started there.
Yes, sir, that's correct. They whatever the final amended budget, the city pays 20% of that. So to my understanding, we pay 100%, and then at the end of the year, we're reimbursed 20% of the total expenses.
Right.
That's correct. Plus, we have offsetting revenue that. Yes, that's correct.
$8,200.
Yes, that's correct. So we have revenue that comes in from tower lease rental stuff that's ongoing. We get that on the annual. Currently, it's about $54,000 a year that we're receiving off that. We just did a rate increase like last year. We sent notices out. We established a rate. Yes, and everybody signed the lease, so everybody re-upped, and they know in 5 years we're going to adjust that rate again. That was part of it. So that amendment all the time is the next line down. That's where like people have radios that are on the radio system. We pay for that up front. They reimburse that. So we've done a little bit better job of counting that revenue, so we don't have to do a budget amendment. So that's the $25,000. The civil defense, that's not really a grant. That's just revenue. Yes. Yes. So here's the grant civil defense reimbursement line. That's $56,000, and what that is they require us to have an emergency plan, update our emergency plan, do training, and a lot of things like that. And we have to document that, send reports in on a quarterly to get that. It's called an emergency planning grant. So that we get that every year. The next one is a Homeland Security grant, and sometimes the amount changes on the Homeland Security depending on what gets appropriated for that line. But that's an annual grant that we get. The TVA reimbursement, that's for like the fixed nuclear facility So Sequoia basically is what that's for. So there's like $50-something thousand of that is for salary, and then there's like $20-something thousand that we use to either repair equipment or buy new equipment with. And then the next line down, that is the 20%. Yeah, from the city. And then the last line is. Yes, that's correct. Yes, so it's the amended budget at the end of the year, they pay 20% of that.
Yeah, we may give you the number both ways, but yeah. And that's, we don't have a contract anymore. It's always now by annual verbal agreement, as long as it's in line. On the building thing, they will have to agree, but we're assuming they will agree because with their connection with 911, they know of the need. So they're gonna either have to do it here or with 911 or somebody. But the budget, we have to keep it in line because we can't just assume they'll always agree, but they always have. And we haven't had a contract probably in 10 years.
It was for the 2020 tornadoes. Yeah, so in the 2020 tornado reimbursement, about $750.
It's nearly all there. And what I was saying is it'll be zeroed out. It's just cleaner to do it that way. And then you will amend in the amount they didn't spend, and that'll be as seed money then to continue on.
Okay, so all right, so we were lucky enough. I had an architect reach out to us, say, "Hey, I'd like to help you," and it's for pro bono. This architect was drawing some plans and stuff, and it really came down to a situation where he's like, "Hey, you're not going to be able to get a building permit to build a new building unless you go with what's called a Class 4 structure." So we were going to build like a Class 2 structure, but the 2018 building codes that y'all have adopted says that if you build a structure for a 911 center, emergency management, anything like that has to be a Class 4 structure that will withstand 250 mile an hour winds. So when we started looking at construction cost of that, he guesstimated that we would have, instead of 2.4, would have been $5 million to $7 million. And to find out the true cost of what it would take, it was going to cost us like $270,000. So we're looking in a different direction to accomplish a move. And you may go into that now?
When you say a different direction, what are you talking about?
The direction everybody wants to talk about anyway, so forget their budget.
All right. So
but that's
good.
okay.
All right.
Next year, not this year.
Yeah. So, but it's important to talk about it this year, and I'll
Right.
tell you why.
And we wanted to, but I just didn't want you to confuse the two. He has a huge increase in his budget, so that's what you ought to hone in today. But go back to and he does, but I took care of 116 of it for him by saying we'll amend it back in. What he was telling you there is the other one got, in my opinion, out of line with what we can afford to do. A $7 million building, you can count the votes, but I don't think the votes are there to build a $7 million building. Well, we're going to get a grant. What was the max on the grant?
So the maximum on the grants were technically about $3 million.
Okay. So now you got to fund $4 million.
So Plan B, go.
Yeah, so we look for,
No. The difference in the cost of the estimated building and minus the grant was still $4 million.
Yeah, so
And so, in my opinion, it got cost prohibitive, especially, I got to be reality. After you do $15 million at Hopewell, you don't have $4 million more dollars to spend on a 911 or a EMA building. Have you voted to do that yet? No, you've not, but it will happen. I have no doubt. So you're going to spend the $15 million there. You don't have a 4 plus a $3 million grant to do a $7 million building. So Troy, you're going to find a better option. So what he's going to explain to you is another option. We've not asked for your approval yet. We're not to that point. He'll still have a grant he can apply for with or without. He'll give you the cost. But it's to use an existing building down the road, not today or tomorrow, and do it in a less costly, hopefully a more affordable way. We've got to do something with 911. Now, there is another option that's still out there, too, that Troy probably don't like. There's an option to move 911 and leave EMA where they're at. That one takes joint effort. And anytime it takes joint effort, it takes a while to get answers to it. But that's an option that's still out there. So in the meantime, we're looking at option 2, assuming 911 stays where they're at, EMA moves, they need to move somewhere. We can take an existing building, do some renovations to it, and get in it in a lot more costly, efficient manner. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. That's what he's going to explain to you. So that's why we're changing streams, so to speak. I think, and I hope you all will agree, that $7 million got out of whack. Tom could use $1 million of that on roads. School's going to get 15. There's just, in my opinion, not $7 million out there. So we're looking for a less costly way to move forward. Still got the need there, but there's got to be a better, more affordable way. And now he's looked at, if we were to use this other existing building and renovate it, and it's not today or tomorrow because it's being used right now, but a year from now it would be available. And so he can explain to you the costs on that. Is that hypothetical? We're talking about next year's budget, using what money that you've given on seed money to move forward. And at this time next year, you'll be talking about funding the renovation of this building that he can tell you about now and give you a heads up a year ahead of time. You didn't have a year's head start on the Hopewell, by the way, but we're going to be giving you a year's head start on this building.
We appreciate the commentary.
You get presented $15 million request and ask for a resolution a week later on schools.
Thank you, Mayor. Who's next?
But anyway, explain what we're looking at now, and we don't have all the answers. Please understand.
Do we have any more budget questions, Mr.
The moral of the story is you're not going over to Peerless Road. It's too expensive.
No, it's very expensive.
This time next year, we'll see you right back here.
So
Commissioner Mason.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, I remember when Troy and them were up to more folks, and if he's asking for additional help, those guys, they stay busy all year long. I know what kind of work they do over there too, and I think.
Thank you, sir.
Back to Commissioner Slater. Has not,
For what?
It's under Fund 101, and it's in 48,000 other governments and citizen groups. So why is that in there then?
I've put that in there in case we wanted to look at the total number of the 101 budget, but not his revenue. I didn't mean to confuse you.
I retract my question then.
Make a note next year not to confuse.
If you look at the budget request, the first page in there is just his revenue lines, and that's what you ought to look at. This other one's got lots of lines that don't even apply to him, is what they're telling you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So his revenues come to the $400,000 figure estimated, and that's that first sheet in your, if you were looking at the red book that none of you have, that would be the first sheet.
I was looking at this the other day,
Mayor.
and I asked her to put it in there. I didn't mean to confuse you.
I'm good.
You're good? All right, back to not Commissioner, he's Mayor Davis.
Gosh, I lost my train of thought of what I wanted to say there. A comment with Tim. The headline ought to be Mayor Davis has always proposed lowering the size of county government, because 2 or 3 people have talked about lowering the number of employees. Yeah, they had another employee, and they said at the front desk when you walk in the 911 center, yeah, that position was provided by EMA. It's no longer provided by EMA, it's provided by the 911 center. So there's that position. The other gentleman said, if you put me in that position, I can do both, and we won't need the second building inspector. So I did that. So that's two examples of where I've cut the size of government. But I didn't eliminate the lines, so in case I needed to do something future. But that lady that finally retired that we didn't replace at EMA did other things, but they also provided that clerk at the front. So we can argue all day about cutting positions. I'll brag about it anytime I have the opportunity, but usually they'll say, let's cut the positions, we can do it with fewer people, and then, oh, by the way, like you heard here a few minutes ago, let's spend the money over here, here, and here, and then next year we'll come back and ask for that position back, thinking that, oh, Gary will be gone or he'll be forgot about it. Well, so far I'm not gone, I ain't forgot about it either. So anytime we've lowered the number of positions, I not only brag about it, but if you give me time, I'll go back and justify them. So enough on that, but appreciate it. Other departments don't do that, their numbers keep growing. My 10 departments have not grown. I'm sorry. I'm explaining. Everybody talking about cutting the number of employees. Marlon, don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about.
Well,
That's what 2 or 3 people have talked about today.
I didn't.
I said Marlon. He's over there like, what's he talking about?
Because you're.
And Tom, if he can talk about cutting the number of employees, and he probably can, he ought to brag about it. But there's probably a reason why he cut the number of employees.
I just didn't know that we were talking about that. Anyway, Mayor Davis and now Chairman Cry. He's still fine. All right, back to me. I'm good as well. Commissioner Alford. Back to Commissioner Mason and then Commissioner Rogers, if you have one. Commissioner Rogers?
If there's no more questions, I'd like to hear about this new building that's going to be here in a year. So hear about that.
So I think that's going to be referred to building and land. Right, Mayor, at the right time? Yeah. The only thing I was thinking of is that the Peerless Road, he came to finance about, just before Christmas, and then we rolled it, asking for that money back. He was going to go over to Peerless Road. That was the intention. And now, I guess today officially we're saying that's not going to happen. The mayor's putting a kibosh on it, and we're kiboshing it too.
So one thing, Mr. Chairman.
Let him go ahead and explain, for finance purposes especially, what we're looking at for next year.
But what you're saying, I agree with you, is the 25-26 budget.
It is next year's budget, and I didn't want you to confuse them.
We have taken a few steps here, and that's the reason why letting you know now will probably be important as y'all move forward, because we have took this other option and we have applied for the grant. And if we get awarded the grant, we're going to want to know whether y'all guys will want to continue with the project or if I reject the grant.
We'll have to do it, yeah. This is a storm shelter, right? A tornado hits, and this is where people go to be safe.
We'll renovate a building, and we'll build another portion inside, unfinished space inside the building, 50 by 50. And we're going to ask the government to help fund that and all the technology that goes along with running the EOC.
Right. I don't mind you asking questions, but it's going to building and land here in the near future. It's over there off of APD 40.
Yes, it's 3069 Overlook Drive. It's a building that the county owns. It's leased, and the lease will not end until October 1, 2025, which fits right in that window of the grant, but we will need, once we get notified that they're going to fund that grant, we'll have to either accept it or reject it.
Right, yeah.
So that's the only reason why I needed to know if there would be the support there to do that. And we kind of have a budget of what we think that we need to put aside for the 2025 budget.
But if we accepted the grant the first time, why wouldn't we accept it now that you're just going to a new location? I mean, right? I mean, we were going to do this all along unless it's...
If we will apply for the grant, and it'll have a match, of course. It won't be 100% grant. And at that time, we'll come to you and say, we've been awarded the grant, but you do need, in the new budget this amount of money.
Yeah.
And this project is cheaper than the original project.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, a lot cheaper. But I wish we hadn't... We have a lease on that property. We don't need to be talking about addresses, okay? That's a year and a half out. But it is what we're looking at.
I'm sorry, my bad. I could have asked, is it properly zoned? Anyway. That's everything. All right. That's it with EMA. Thank you, Troy. Appreciate you.
While he's going away though, but seriously, there, you will be asked to fund a matching amount if this moves forward, and we won't know for a while. He's got seed money to move forward with it. We'll apply for the grant. If the grant happens, then we'll come back to you and give you specific estimates on that particular project. In the meantime, the whole thing may have changed. Everything's still up in the air. There may be a less costly way come along, but you need to be aware of where we're moving and why we changed direction.
So while while Tom and his crew come up here, I'm gonna ask that we take a 5-minute break. We've been at this since 1 o'clock. So, what time has you got? Time you got here? 2:40. So, let's call it 10 minutes. 2:50. We'll come back together. Sorry. The question I have on your budget at the summary level, when you get just so you know what page I'm looking at, is the summary page where you get to your total expenses, total revenue. I just want to get a better idea of and where I need to go on this. So in the current budget, and I know these are projections and estimates, and here we are in April, and we got to go all the way to June 30th to finish out this year. But your total revenue, $8,500,580, something like that. You estimated that your fund balance as of June 30th of this year is going to be about 3.1 million. You're 11,600,000. Your total expenses in the current budget is 7.5 million. I usually just go by the 7.5, but and that would leave your fund balance, you know, again, I know this is all theoretical, at 4.1. That 4.1 transfers over to your beginning balance in the budget we're getting ready to approve. Your estimated revenue goes up from 8.5 to 9.4. We'll chat about that here in a sec. But your expenses go up to 13.5, Tom. And that's going to bring your total expenses to 10.6. Your fund balance goes from 4.1 to 2.8. So can you help me understand that your expenses are going up, your revenue is going up, no doubt. And I get this again, this is all estimate, but your expenses are going up more than your revenue. You're dipping into your fund balance quite a bit. So can you speak to that? What you're trying to accomplish with this next budget?
Angie will explain that.
I added in.
Can you move the microphone over there?
I added in that Transportation Modernization Act, which had not been included in here previously, because it's state aid, but it's separate from our regular state aid. So that will raise our expenditures because we'll spend that money, but we'll also get it back as well.
So if you're going to get it back, wouldn't it be in your revenue projection?
It is. It's included in that as well.
Okay, so then we go back to your expense being higher than your revenue, percentage-wise. And the reason, let me just go ahead and add this while you're doing it. This obviously goes into, you have maintenance of effort, and it's calculated a little bit different than some of our others. It's an average of 5 years. I just want to make sure that we're not getting even close to that, because Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, if we do somehow go under maintenance effort, we're in jeopardy of losing all that state money you're talking about, right?
Correct.
So that's why I'm concerned about your fund balance going down from 4.1 to 2.8.
And that's if we spend every penny in our budget.
Right.
So every year, I went back 4 years and I looked, and that's the way it's been projected for the last 4 years, with it projecting at us spending 100%, but we don't. So we should be able to bring that fund balance number right back up
So you're
at the end of the year.
so you're going into this budget planning on not necessarily spending everything, even though you have an approval to do it.
Based on the last 4 years, yeah.
So looking at your revenue and some of your line items, you have this. I kind of find it interesting. I think it's the first time I've seen it, and it just brought it over. Electric vehicles. This is what I guess Donna Simpson, when you renew your tag, they charge an extra fee or something like that. And now she collects that, and I guess the state's bringing it back to you through this line here.
It's
right?
200 for electric and 100 for hybrid.
200 for electric and 100 for hybrid. Okay. So that's money you really never had. It's not that much. It's only 12,000, but.
And I was conservative with that because we've just only got it 1 month this year. March is the first month we got it, that $2,100. So I wasn't really sure what to project for next year because I don't know if that's high for this first month or if it'll go down over the next few months. I don't know.
That's fair.
Well, if I could jump in there, its intention is to offset their loss in gas tax because gas is going down. So it is new revenue, but it's really hopefully offsetting their loss in another line.
In theory.
Yeah, that's the thing. Theory.
On that same note that the mayor's, what has the state told you? Because in your predecessors, I used to ask this question. You have communications with the state. You get money from property tax, and you get money from the state, all the gasolines and stuff like that. What are they telling you? How the state's looking with respects to these taxes?
Brett Howe said right now to keep our gas, motor, petroleum, everything flat. He said they're stagnant. He'll give us a better projection in May, but he said not to raise them, so I didn't raise any of them.
Man, I think that's consistent with some of the other things we're hearing from the state, not just you guys, but with schools and some others that I've heard is the state's telling everybody that they're having, I wouldn't call it revenue issues, but they're being very conservative with their estimates.
You know, they're projecting flat, and her budget reflects that also. It used to be growing, though. We're talking about gas tax. It used to be growing, and now they're projecting flat, and that's because of this. And so that other line, if it ends up being an increase, it's offsetting the increase that we lost in the gas tax. Is sort of what the state is. I don't know that they've set the amount right. That was a guess, $100 and $200. You know, I could argue that we pay more than that in gas tax, but anyway, that was the figure they arbitrarily came up with after some study. And they may have to adjust that down the road, but yeah, what you're seeing is gas tax staying flat, and then instead of that growth there, you're seeing this new line called whatever you just called it, the electric vehicle tax.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something while I think of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do the maintenance of effort chart. So when I present my budget, I want to be able to say that we've gone through the maintenance of effort thing, and it'll be your first one, Angie, but you've got them there to go by. And it does meet maintenance of effort because they want to see that at budget when I do the budget proposal. Okay. And I had forgot to ask you about it, but go ahead and do that. It gives you last year's audits. You use last year's audit numbers, and you use this year's estimated, and then you use what you're requesting next year. So you should have all of those pretty good now. Go ahead and do that maintenance of effort because people like Mylan's going to ask about it, and then once I can say we've got it, and here's it, that'd be a good thing.
Okay, will do.
Last question, Tom, if you have on your budget requests and capital things, and fairly good, but the one dump truck and one mini excavator, I'll just ask you at a very high level. I mean, obviously you wouldn't ask for it unless you need it, so that's easy. But how does that help with getting what you do more? I mean, obviously more equipment, you can get more stuff done, but I guess as much as you can explain to someone like me why you need another dump truck and a mini excavator.
Okay, I'll address the dump truck first.
Please.
We have about 17, 18 large dump trucks. And I'm not sure how many miles we put on them a year, but
So is this replacing one of those? I mean, like one's going to go away and this new one comes in?
yeah, there'll be one
Okay,
come
I'm
off.
sorry. I thought this was
Yeah.
going to be in addition to what you
But,
already
you
have.
know, you're adding a $200,000 one.
My bad. I'm
but
sorry.
you're-
So this is
you're
a
gonna be
replacement.
selling one for probably
All right,
10 to 20,000. So that's it. And we should be on really. I'm not even sure that buying one dump truck a year would keep you up. Would keep your vehicles in enough operating order to be efficient. It might be. I don't know.
Well, that's what you requested, and it helps me that this is a replacement. So one's going to come off at the right time, and it's going to replace. And I assume, is that the same with your mini excavator?
Yeah. Well, the mini, we use these grade awls. And I don't know if you know what a grade awl is, but it's a rubber tired vehicle that is similar to a backhoe or an excavator, but it's on rubber tires. You can drive it down the road. They're about $400,000 now. We've got one that's got, I'm thinking around 1,400 hours on it. It's total junk. It's just total junk. We can't keep it on the road. Every time you turn around, it's 10,000 here, 5,000 there. So we have these mini excavators. We have 3 of those. A couple of them are about wore out. But in talking around the other counties, I'm asking, how do y'all afford to keep these grade awls on the road, keep them operating? And McMinn County, Hamilton County, I'm not sure about Polk County. I don't think they even run one anymore. The counties are giving up on them. First of all, $400,000 or more is ridiculous for the price. Might not be so bad if you could keep it working, but they're junk. They have so much computerized stuff on them. When you go to work on them, the company who sells you the vehicle won't sell you the program that you can work on it. You got to take it to them or them come to you. So in wanting a new Mini X is we may wean ourselves off of these grade awls. Might keep one because there comes a time when we might be setting a bridge where we need a heavy duty machine. But we have 3 of them. I don't feel like we can afford to keep 3 of them on the road. As high as the parts are and as much trouble as they give, we just need to get away from them.
So that's why you're asking for one mini excavator.
Yeah.
All right. So if I only had X amount of dollars and I could only, in between those 2, which one would you go with? I hate to do that to you, but priority, I mean, I only got X amount of dollars. You're going to get one and eventually you get the other one, but which one would be first?
Probably the truck.
The dump truck?
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is the budget hearings. The mayor will do his proposal, and then the finance committee and the full commission will make some changes. But I think it's already, we've talked about this with the mayor and the other commission where we can, kind of like we did with the striping. If we can use some other funds, federal money or something like that, we'll try as much as possible to do that.
Okay.
To get this done. The other thing was your salt. I noticed, and you got to replenish the salt. You had to use quite a bit of salt with this last ice storm we had back in January.
Well,
and you got to have salt.
Yeah, we got to have salt, but something on down the road, and I'm gonna say within the next year or 2, we're gonna need to look at building a new salt shed. our salt shed holds about 1,000, maybe 1,100 ton of salt sand mixture, however you want to do it. But cubic yard wise, it'll hold about 1,000 to 1,100 ton. But it's concrete walls up 8 or 10 feet high, and salt works on concrete. It eats the reinforcement steel in it. It eats it up, and it becomes weak. And they've already, within the past 2 or 3, 4 years, had to go in and reinforce the walls to keep them from falling. So I think at some point, not in this year's budget, maybe not even next, but at some point over the next 2 or 3 years, we are going to have to look at building a new salt shed.
So noted. So noted. That's all I have for right now. On my questioning, going to next. Oh, Mayor Davis.
I just want to point out some highlights in his budget. I don't get into the line-to-line stuff, except for one time whenever her budget wasn't balanced. But if you look on the page with the fund balance, the important things, their expenses are going up 1.5 million. The revenue is going up 1.4 million, but they have a 27% projected fund balance. They're only required to have 7. So they have a hefty fund balance. And the thing to remember is, if you look at this year's expenses, they budgeted $9 million. They only expect to spend $7 million. Tom can control his budget. He can totally close down the department if they had a budget issue like previous road superintendents had. He can control his budget, but if he goes by the projected budget, he's still projecting to have a 27% fund balance. So that's a good thing. Bottom line is, that's a good, hefty fund balance. I personally don't care how he spends it, as long as he maintains that good, hefty fund balance and stays within the maintenance of effort, which is the only part I hadn't seen yet, but that will be okay. The only thing scary about when the expenses increase too much is that going to mess up our maintenance of effort down the road? But once we see that, I think it's good, because I know that he won't necessarily spend that 10 million anyway. He only spent 7 of the 9 this year, right? And so I'm just saying that's a good thing. That's the leeway that he has that most other department heads don't have. Road superintendent can do within his own budget. Once it's approved, he can spend half of it if he wants to, or if he has a good year and doesn't need the salt, he doesn't. You know what I'm saying? But the only thing he's tied to is in employees. And in years past, I've seen the road department close and the employees were laid off. So that can even happen. Not that it should. It hasn't happened in our lifetime, in our career lifetime, but it did happen in the past. So anyway, that 27% is very important, and if the maintenance of effort is met, in my opinion, he has an increased budget, but it's a good budget that I know will end up next year being just as good once again. So I hadn't talked to Tom about it, but did I say anything wrong, Tom, there? That's the bottom line. Tom's sitting over our expressionless and makes me wonder, did I say something wrong? But 1 year, the fund balance was out of whack, and that was a bad year. That's the only time I've never seen it. I've never had to say to Tom, you got a screwed up budget, have I, Tom? So that I just wanted to compliment him on that and point out that those are the important things to look at, that as well as a maintenance of effort chart. We have to send that maintenance of effort to the state because they check and make sure that we meet the maintenance of effort. But unless that was out of whack, I have no problem whatsoever with it, just like it is. So that's all.
Mr. Alford.
Well, one of them came with me day one, and I started all 3 of our office personnel at the same level, same pay. One of them couldn't do exactly what we thought she could do or expected her to do. We cut her salary. I did. And she has learned a lot. Shannon, Rexanne, Angie, have worked with her. She has learned a lot. She has became a very productive office personnel. She's great. She's still got some classes to go to, but she has or is becoming what we want her to be as an office person. So as she did learn and don't get me wrong, everything that we do in our office, accounts payable, accounts receivable, budgets, payroll, she did all that. And let me tell you something, and I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I know when you did these things for the private sector, there's a difference in doing it for the government, particularly the road department. I don't know, I haven't seen the schools or the sheriff's department or any of the other budgets, but I can't imagine any of the other departments' budget being any more elaborate than this, having this many line items. But nevertheless, she hadn't told a story. She had done payroll. She'd done accounts payable. She had ran an office, but not on the scale that we are. She's learned it. I'm proud of her. I wouldn't take nothing for her. And that's why she got a big increase, is because I originally cut her a lot.
Back when you cut her, before you back up.
No, she's not there yet. No. Oh. Okay, this is Angie. That's who we're talking about here. I needed a budget person. I got a budget person, but I got much more than that. I got a lady that knows the whole business, and I just felt like it was, and like I said, I started all of our office personnel out at the same amount, which, by the way, is lower than the lowest paid person in the office before. Not one of our people started out any more than what the previous office person's lowest paid made. So we saved money there. But I got much more really than I bargained for in Angie. Angie she's the whole package as far as office personnel. As you can see, she's sitting here beside me today. I have a wonderful office staff. Some of them are just like the employee that I was talking about, like my daughter. She ran an office for a home health company for, 10 or 11 years. She done payroll. She did accounts payable, receivable, the whole 9 yards. But she hadn't done it with the Bradley County Road Department budget. She hadn't done checks for the Bradley County Road Department. Hadn't done it on that big of a scale. So, but she has, just like that, she's called on. She's great. I've got a great office staff now. We're operating with 4. I think at one time there, previously it may have operated with 6 or 7. I don't know. But anyway, I hope that answers your question. We're not. I don't think I'm overpaying anybody. I really don't.
Yes, all you have on to Commissioner Mason.
Well, I'm chairman of the road committee, and I usually talk to them about it once a month or so. And how is the employees as far as, have you got back up to I know there was some that left. Are you back?
Yeah, no, we're not nowhere near where we need to be. We're having a lot of trouble right now, and I assume probably that it's probably a normal thing for most any company or any department, but we're having money problems with paying our employees enough to keep them. We can get them, but we can't keep them. And when I took over in 2022, we were, or not we, but they were starting out like a CDL driver at $14 an hour. At that time, in 2022, they could go to work for example, Wendy's or McDonald's and places like that for that much or more. They were paying your laborer, just your common laborer with no experience or anything, paying those $12 an hour. So I did increase the labor pay from $12 to $13.50. I increased the CDL driver / heavy equipment operator from 14 to 18. And there's where we still can't keep help. They come and they work a while, but the whole time they're there, they're hunting something with more money. And I tried to explain to them. I was explaining to one guy who was leaving, and I asked him. I said, "Do you realize you're making 18? I think he's got a 3% raise. He's making like 18.78 or something." And I said, "Do you realize you're probably getting $6 or $7 of benefits here?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "But Tom said you can't take those to Food City. They won't take them." So what's happening is they're going to where they can make more money and buy groceries. And they're not worried about insurance and retirement, days off, holidays, vacation days, sick days. They're not worried about that. They're worried about feeding their family. And I don't know what you do about it. I don't know if do we cut their benefits and give them more money? I don't know. But we checked around. Angie called around and checked at some of the companies that, well, actually some of the companies we're losing our employees to. And they're paying them, $25, $26, $27 an hour starting out, some of them. And they're not going to work for $18 an hour if they can get that. But like I say, I know the problem. And I know, you and I both know that money solves a lot of problems, and it probably would solve that. But we've had, I've got it down here, how many we've lost in just the last few months.
16.
How many?
16.
16. They just, like I say, it's just a landing place. But I would like to increase that, like say a heavy equipment operator or a commercial driver's license holder. I would like to try to raise that, starting on that from $18 to maybe $20 or $22, and your labor we're paying $13.50 now. Raise that up to about $17 or $18 an hour. Most companies around town now, I've talked around to some of the people, like the new companies coming in over at the new industrial park. Some of those are starting out at $23 an hour, 25. But I just feel like that's the only way that we can combat it. Which And we try to manage our budget to where, like if we have somebody to leave, say in November, December, we don't replace them. Now I have, I ain't gonna say that we don't, because if I find a good heavy equipment operator that wants to go to work in December, I'll hire him, because they're hard to come by. Same way with commercial driver's license people. You can find a lot of commercial driver's license people that have driven trucks over the road, and there's a big difference in doing over the road and hauling asphalt and rock and things like that. We get very few that are equipped to do what we do with them, haul asphalt and stuff like that. And most of them, we don't even have time to train them until they're gone. Some of them never haul a load of rock or a load of asphalt before they're gone.
All right, Mr. Mason, you still got the floor. Going to our list, after Commissioner Slater.
Thank you, sir. So this sheet that you also gave us, where you have these rate increases from CDL asking for 20, mechanics asking for 20, and laborers asking for 16.50. Is this in your budget numbers? You put those in your budget numbers? Okay. And you're right. I mean, I think part of the issue too is the unemployment rate in Bradley County is just a little over 3%, and most people that want a job have a job, and they can go find a job making 50 cents more an hour, especially the younger people. And you're exactly right. They don't care about the benefits. They're not looking about long term. They're looking about what gets them through now. And with inflation, I get it. I see both sides of it. So, and do you have 16 openings right now? Okay. Are you actively recruiting for those 16 people?
No, we will start within the next week or so.
Okay.
Like I say, I don't like to really hire during the winter months, because we really don't need that much help during the winter, because we're not mowing, we're not paving, a lot of our jobs that we do in the summer we don't do in the winter, so we don't need as much help. So that helps our line items, salary line items, to do that. But we'll start within the next few days, because we've already started paving, but we'll start recruiting best we can.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Chairman Cry, please.
Yes, I'm looking at your proposed salary for the CDL drivers, mechanics, laborers. 1650 might be appropriate, but the CDL and mechanics, I think, are still extremely low. If you're going to hire someone and retain them, you're still going to have a turnover. We're nothing but a training ground here, and that's not just road department, it's county government. We basically train them for other surrounding county government positions. It's what we do, and we're going to have to start paying. Why would you pay a CDL driver $20 an hour when he can easily go for First Fleet or Jackie Evans or Gibco for $5 an hour more, or whatever? And a mechanic, I find that hard to believe that they're only paying $20 an hour, and they charge me $200 an hour to take my car down there. So
when I called, I asked for the base level mechanics, like the ones that just straight do the oil changes.
Yeah.
And so if they've got any kind of special certification or experience, they start them at least 30 an hour. So
I don't know. I guess my only comment would be, and it's certainly up to you, is to raise that figure up. There's a savings when you don't have transition all the time. You don't have to be training people. When you're training people, they cause accidents and things like that. And you can cut that out, you save money. But thank you very much. You're doing a good job.
Thank you. We've lost two good mechanics in the last 6 months. I mean, two that I hated to see go. I mean, of course, we have one opening now. We had one leave last week. So I mean, if y'all don't have any objection, and you know, we'll take care of the paying. You know, I think we have the money to do it.
Well, I'm up next, so I'll just go ahead and say, yeah, I agree 100% with the mayor. Basically, we're looking at the total expenses, total revenue, the fund balance, and all that kind of stuff. For the most part, there's maybe one exception. What you do with it, we support you 100%, or at least I do. I mean, you're in charge and all that kind of stuff. It's I guess I'm going back on memory, which I shouldn't do, but it's when you move money out of, what was it, hot mix or something a couple years ago, and that kind of stuff. But whatever you want to do with your money, as long as you stay within your budget, you got all the support you need from us. So, question was asked, is this within your budget? You affirmed that. Go ahead.
Thank you.
My I guess quick question is, I'm gonna address that, is more kind of a statement in a way, is back to the striping. I don't know about the others, but I've had more positive feedback on the striping over the last couple of months. I mean, not every single day, but over the last couple of months on pretty much anything. So I appreciate you guys doing that. Last time we met, I think you said that you were only about halfway through the funding on the 500,000 that we put forth on that. So there's still more striping to go, at least from a money point of view. Just want to say I appreciate the striping program and what you're doing there. And I don't know how we'll ever quantify the safety piece of it, except maybe hopefully accidents are going down, and we can see that in some statistics from the sheriff's office and stuff like that. But I do appreciate that. On the fund balance there, as is pointed out, your percentages are fantastic. When you look there at 27 and your policy 7 and all that, I was really just being, pardon me, a little nitpicky on the actuals. The numbers themselves were, so that's just me. Next is Mayor Davis.
I don't have anything to add,
right,
but one
thank you.
question. You don't have pay increases, you know, when we do the percentage, is it already built in yours? Okay, good. That's what you're supposed to do. 1 year it was already built in, so that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, because eventually we've got to find out how much property tax growth there is. We won't find out that till maybe the end of this month at best, probably mid-May. We have to work with Stanley on those, how much the county grew with property tax, since that's part of your budget. Next is that Mayor? Is it Commissioner Alford? Thank you, Commissioner Mason, Commissioner Slater, and we'll wrap it up with Chairman Cry.
Fine.
Tom, Angie, Shannon, Josh. I'm sorry. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right, so that finishes up the budget hearings. Lori, can you tell me or us what all we gave you to do, just to make sure that we?
Miles,
No, Louie.
I don't recall anyone else opening their mouth.
Is there anything else that anybody asked her to do? All right. I'll share. If there's nothing else,